Afghanistan. Was US withdrawal Biden's worst decision? What could go wrong with Joe Biden's decision to withdraw US troops 11 September 2021, exactly 20 years after the Twin Tower attack? Now, subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications so you don't miss any video. In America today, there is often a sense that it all leads to 9/11, the most striking and painful event since Pearl Harbor, the surprise attack by the Japanese in the Pacific, which would end with the United States getting involved in World War II. And that's how 9/11 led to the longest war this country has ever waged in history. The attack on the Twin Towers, the plane that crashed into the Pentagon, and the one that crashed in a Pennsylvania field inflamed American nationalism. Young people, in fact, people of all ages, attended recruitment units in large number to enlist. The United States was attacked. These patriots wanted to fight to defend the country, the land of freedom, and take revenge on those who wanted to harm the United States. And don't confuse that with a kind of irrational chauvinism. It wasn't that. I met many people, not just American, who, although they had a liberal mind and weren't big fans of everything America did, had the feeling that this was the time to wear the shirt of the country. There was no middle ground. Either you were on the side of the rule of law, free and fair election, legality, gender equality, and universal education, or you were on the side of those who threw airplanes against buildings, stoned people to death, threw homosexuals from buildings, and denied education to girls. If that's a simplification, that's oversimplification, maybe it is. But when 9/11 happened, that's how many Americans saw it. From national crusade to endless wars. But by 2016, the wars exacerbated by nationalism had already lost their strength. And they were one of the factors that led to the election of Donald Trump, the awareness of the endless wars, which was how candidate Trump referred to the quagmire in which the conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq at the time became. The Americans, understandably, wanted to raise the drawbridge, bring the troops home, let the people of those countries solve their own problems, and finally give up the idea that the American model of liberal democracy was an exportable product that could be imposed. The interventionist liberal crusade is over. Trump, if he had won last November, probably would have withdrawn American troops more quickly. Joe Biden's hopes to deliver on Trump's promise. But in political terms, the most pragmatic thing would have been to continue to write checks to pay for the US military stays in Afghanistan for another year, and then another, and maybe another one. The political pressure for the withdrawal of American troops from the country was not overwhelming. High-ranking defense officials, the foreign policy establishment, and US allies abroad thought anything other than a status quo in Afghanistan would be reckless. But one question tormented the mind of the new President Biden, and it was that asked by Hillel the Elder in biblical times. If not now, when? Biden, who in 2009 advised President Barack Obama not to send any more troops, decided for now, and it will withdraw troops from Afghanistan, and that may well be the most important decision of your presidency. 20 years lost? When the attack of the Twin Towers took place, he was a BBC correspondent in Paris and was in Northern France on his way to a refugee center traveling to the UK. I was driving towards Calais when I got a call from a colleague telling me to stop at the nearest gas station to watch TV and see what was going on. We didn't know what would happen next or where we were going to end up. A year after the optimism of the new millennium, a new story was written before our eyes. And it was not exactly happy. The war on terrorism, a clash of civilizations, call it what you want. If it worth remembering, why the United States, the United Kingdom, and other countries invaded Afghanistan, the Taliban actually became a school for Islamism who wanted to wage jihad against the West. Attack on the Twin Towers. Al-Qaeda aspirants were heading to the country to train for Holy War. The 9/11 terrorism honed their skills and plotted their plan there. The elimination of the Taliban and the fight against Al-Qaeda have become essential elements for global security. A few weeks after 9/11, I was in northern Afghanistan. We continued with the troops of the Northern Alliance supported by the United States and the United Kingdom, while the international coalition drove the Taliban out of power. We spent the first day traveling from Koha, Bahauddin, then the Northern Alliance home, down a road where the Taliban had killed several journalists in an ambush 2 days earlier. After one night, we ended up in a town called Talakan. The Taliban had lost control of the site the night before we arrived. One of the emblematic photos was that of a classroom of a school for girls that had become a weapon depot for the rockets of the extremist group, which, in its hasty retreat, its militants left behind. The Taliban's last stronghold at the time was Kunduz, a vital communication corridor between the cities of Kabul and Mazar-i-Sharif, and the border with Uzbekistan to the north. Now, both Talakan and Kunduz are back under Taliban control, and the group surrounds Kabul, preparing to dominate the entire country. And that poses a very uncomfortable dilemma for Joe Biden's and his, if not now, when policy. 20 years later, with so many lives lost and so many billions of dollars spent, what did he do? What has been achieved? What do you say for the families of all those soldiers killed by the Taliban that the United States now surrenders? What will prevent extremist groups from reestablishing their jihad training camps? At the UN Security Council hearing last Friday, it was reported that up to 20 different groups of extremists involving thousands of foreign fighters are already fighting with Taliban forces. A second war in Afghanistan? I'm sure that as I write this, more families of Afghan civilians will be packing their belongings in fear of what Taliban control will mean, perhaps going to the northern France and then to the UK. Will women's schools be weapon depot again? The scars of 9/11 are evident everywhere. Thousands of military personnel have returned home with prosthetic and troubled minds. Suicidal rates have increased. Families have lost loved ones. On the streets of the United States, there are men with red plastic cups begging for alms. Many of them holding signs saying they are veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. The desire to go home and isolate yourself from a troubled world is entirely understandable. It was not in vain that the slogan "American First" had so much resonance. There is also a difference between imposing your will as a policeman of the world and being a guardian of peace. Thousands of American soldiers are still stationed in South Korea, although the Korean War occurred 7 years ago. American president seems to have learned that a tense peace is better than an ongoing war or a destabilized region. Joe Biden's hoped his decision would lead to headlines such as "The war of Afghanistan is over" or "America's longest war is over." What could possibly go wrong? After 20 years, and with the Taliban regaining control, historians will be able to say in the future that the 20th anniversary of the Twin Towers attack marked the beginning of a second war in Afghanistan. If you liked this video, leave your comment and share with your friends.